Nationally, there's 2 million people living with limb loss in the States. 2 million. On a regional level, I would guesstimate, around 50 to 100,000 people. Your independence, my independence is different, but the goal is the same, to be independent of whatever it is that the limitations are. First of all, thank you for taking the time to meet with us. We do appreciate your time. The purpose for our visit is to discuss an issue that we're trying to bring to the forefront in legislation that has to do with prosthetic parity. The main core issue is that private insurance companies throughout the country have caps on certain durable medical equipment, and prosthetics happens to fall under the description of durable medical equipment. The Amputee Coalition of America, which is a nationwide organization, had begun the process several years back of trying to pass laws throughout the states, and at this point there are 17 states who have passed the law to ensure prosthetic parity. I have a petition that we've had signed with patients and stuff. Would you sign that for us with support of prosthetic parity in the state? Most patients never expect to have to undergo an amputation, whether it's through trauma, disease. Nobody really anticipates it, and for the most part is unaware of some of the, what you would want to call small print, but the insurance companies are aware of it, which is where the main issue of prosthetic parity rests.
Well, this here sea leg has a microprocessor in it right here at the knee, and this analyzes a patient's gait 50 times a second. There's a strain gauge in the pylon tube that picks up where their weight load is on the foot and lets the processor know whether to have resistance or not. It's really an awesome piece of technology for above-the-knee amputees. Unfortunately, most insurance companies don't see the need for it, and many amputees are denied coverage for this technology. So as our technology gets better, our coverage just seems to get worse.
The policies of the private insurance companies in some cases have limitations, exclusions, or capitations to the amount of funding that can be received for a prosthetic device. For example, you may have a clause that says you can only receive one prosthetic per lifetime, or there may be a clause where there may be only a $1,500 limitation per year, and the cost of prosthetics are 10 times that amount, and so the financial burden that comes back to the patient is overwhelming. And most patients aren't familiar with their durable medical policy. Now that 17 states have passed prosthetic parity in the law already, and the studies have been done, the average had been between 8 cents and 35 cents additional a month per person in their premium for the care, which comes out to around $2 a year in order to sustain adequate prosthetic coverage.
Wow. Yeah. That's pretty neat.
You feel tension in there?
I went to the hospital because I was severely retaining fluid, so I had to have open heart surgery to correct that. But unfortunately, as a result of the operation, I had a reaction, to a drug, to a blood thinning drug. And I developed gangrene in both feet and my hand. So I had to have both my feet amputated in June, and then I had to have 2 operations to cut off, hate to say it this way, the dead part of my hand, which was all my fingers and into a couple of the knuckles, and also the top 1/3 of my thumb. Well, see, at the time, I was purchasing my own insurance. I was shocked to find out, and it was actually John who told me over the phone, that, my insurance only covered what they call durable medical goods, which would include prostheses, wheelchairs, et cetera, up to $1,000. The university was a big help. They held a fundraiser for us and raised a lot of money. John was a big help because he got us involved with Limbs for Life. But see, for people who would not have that kind of help, in my insurance situation, they would have been in debt, probably to the $30,000 at least zone, and that might be a conservative estimate. Heck, even my wheelchair cost like $7,600. The thing is, I was so determined to get back to work and get back to a normal life, which you cannot do without these things. I mean, this is the difference between having a life and not having a life. If I had been aware that this even existed on the policy that I had, I would have paid whatever it took, you know, $10 more a month or whatever. The trouble is, I wasn't even aware that it was the case, because you don't imagine this happening to you. People can imagine heart disease, cancer, things that come up. You know, people can imagine that, but you don't sit there thinking, I better read this policy really closely so that when they saw my legs off, I'll make sure I get prostheses. You know what I mean? You don't think that way. That's why this legislation, you know, that John's pushing for and everything is so important. You know, it's the difference between living in one world and another.
Thank you.